Some time ago, in a beautiful town in the southwestern part of Nigeria, there lived a young and strong-willed teenager named Sholape. She was a loving soul, gentle and kind-hearted, but caught up in a messy family drama. Sholape was the only child of her parents. Her mother, Jibike, was a virtuous woman who possessed all the qualities a man could desire in a woman. She was a loving, responsible, and submissive wife. Unfortunately, her marriage had been a hell of trouble over the years. Jibike wished for a peaceful and respectful marriage, but all her wishes were thrown down the drain. All the responsibilities, financial, emotional, and physical obligations to make her marriage work were placed upon her shoulders. She financed her home from the profit she made from her shop, where she sold groceries and other goods. Her husband, Taye, whom she loved deeply and expected to be loved in return, couldn't reciprocate her love. In all Jibike did, she tried to shower him with affection and respect just to win his heart. But Taye was a careless husband, filled with grudges and lackadaisical attitudes. He never cared about his wife or daughter. He had a good job, but intentionally refused to take up his responsibilities as a husband and father. According to his routine, he went out daily only to return home to eat. If he wasn't served food, he would get angry and hold a grudge against her. If he had any misunderstanding, Taye would hold a grudge with his wife. Jibike's heart was a battleground of conflicting emotions. Despite the years of neglect and abuse from Taye, a part of her still held on to the hope that he would change. She remembered the early days when Taye was peaceful and reasonable. She clung to those memories like a lifeline. But as the years went by and Taye's behavior worsened, Jibike found herself torn between her love for him and the harsh reality of their situation. Deep down, she knew that staying in the marriage was slowly eroding her sense of self-worth. But the fear of the unknown kept her trapped in a cycle of hope and despair. Jibike, a virtuous woman who valued family harmony and sought to avoid gossip, worked hard to prevent quarrels and physical altercations in her home. Whenever her husband, Taye, became angry and verbally abusive, she would remain silent and leave the scene to avoid drawing the attention of neighbors. Jibike maintained this approach for years, hoping that Taye would eventually change for the better. Unfortunately, his behavior only worsened over time. Sholape, their daughter, keenly observed her father's behavior and grew to dislike him. She and Taye had no meaningful father and daughter relationship. They merely coexisted in the same household. Sholape's love for her mother, Jibike, was deep and unwavering. She did everything she could to make Jibike happy. However, Sholape's love and efforts could not fill the void left by Taye's lack of affection for Jibike. One day, Taye returned home angry and refused to speak to his wife. Despite Jibike's efforts to calm him down, he remained silent. "My husband, you seem troubled and upset. What's wrong?" Jibike asked, her voice filled with concern. Taye ignored her, and when she persisted, he snapped, "Mind your own business and leave me alone." "But I'm your wife. Your troubles are mine as well. Please, talk to me," Jibike pleaded. "I'm not a child. Just leave me alone," Taye replied, his tone harsh. Feeling helpless, Jibike left him alone, but she couldn't shake off her worries. Taye's moodiness continued for days. He would leave for work early and return late, barely speaking to anyone at home. The atmosphere in the house grew tense as they both lived like strangers under the same roof. One Friday morning, as Taye was getting ready for a colleague's wedding, he realized that his preferred outfit, a white agbada, was missing. He called out to Jibike, his voice laced with anger. Jibike, where's my white agbada? I can't find it in this wardrobe. He demanded. I think they should be inside the laundry bin. They are not yet washed. Jibike replied calmly. Taye, infuriated by her response, stormed to the laundry bin and found that his clothes were indeed unwashed. How dare you leave my clothes unwashed for so long? It's been over a month since I wore this clothes. Why did you neglect to wash it? Taye yelled. Seeing his anger, Jibike apologized and walked away. Taye, still upset, chose another outfit and left for the party. However, he did not return home that night, leaving Jibike and her daughter waiting anxiously. Jibike stayed up all night, worried about his absence, but he did not return. The next day, Taye still hadn't returned. Jibike grew increasingly worried and anxious. In their 16 years of marriage, Taye had never slept away from home. Despite his shortcomings in taking on responsibilities, he had always been present. Jibike prayed for his safe return, hoping for the best. However, Taye didn't come back until Monday night. When he finally arrived, Jibike confronted him about his whereabouts. Taye, where have you been all weekend? You had us extremely worried, she said, her tone laced with anger. Mind your business, woman. I'm not a baby you should be worried about. Worry about yourself first, Taye replied callously. Jibike was taken aback. You may not be a baby, but you just acted like one. How could you leave your family all weekend without informing us of your whereabouts? I'm your wife, and I deserve to know about your movements. God forbid anything happens to you. I'll be the one your family holds responsible, she said before walking away. After this incident, Taye began staying out late at night, sometimes not returning home for weeks. Jibike grew tired of his behavior and tried to persuade him to change, but Taye only became more obstinate. Jibike felt frustrated and alone as she had no one to turn to for help or advice. She couldn't seek support from Taye's family, who didn't care about her, nor could she turn to her own parents, who had warned her against marrying Taye. Despite her efforts, Taye's behavior continued to deteriorate. Many times, Jibike would find herself in tears, lost in her thoughts. One day, while crying and reflecting on her situation, she remembered the warnings her father had given her before she married Taye. Jibike, my dear daughter, you are beautiful and everything a man could want in a woman. No man will see you and not want to marry you. But this Taye you want to marry, it doesn't seem right for you. Why the rush? You're still very young. You will find a better man. Trust me, I know a responsible man who would be suitable for you when I see one. Please, my baby girl, don't marry Taye, her father had advised. Jibike snapped out of her thoughts and regretted not listening to her father. She wished she had heeded his warning, but her love for Taye had blinded her. Now she was facing the consequences of her stubbornness. Jibike's demeanor changed. She became a shadow of her former self, consumed by her husband's behavior. Despite her effort to salvage her marriage, nothing seemed to work. She began to dwell on negative thoughts, growing increasingly agitated. Sholape tried to console her, but it didn't seem to make a difference. The once strong and elegant Jibike was slowly fading away. One day, Jibike fell ill and decided to visit the hospital. After several tests and examinations, the doctor revealed that her blood pressure was dangerously high, reading 180 over 110. The prolonged stress and negative thinking from her marital struggles had taken a toll on her health. The doctors prescribed medication and advised her to rest. Jibike couldn't attend to her business for weeks because she needed to recuperate. Adiola, Jibike's close friend from the market, whose shop was beside hers, noticed her absence for 7 days and decided to check on her at home. Upon seeing Jibike in a weak condition, Adiola was shocked. She knew Jibike as a strong woman, but now she saw her lying helpless in bed. As Adiola inquired about her condition, Jibike, for the first time, opened up about her marital struggles and a recent diagnosis that led to her absence from the market. Adiola was deeply concerned and scolded her friend. "My friend, marriage is not a do-or-die affair. It's meant to be enjoyed, not endured. How could you subject yourself to such mistreatment for so long? You need to be strong for yourself." And Sholape, she shares stories of women who endured similar situations in their marriages and ended up in tragic circumstances. Adiola advised Jibike to reconsider her situation and start anew rather than continue to suffer in silence. If you don't want to divorce him, then separate from him. For the meantime, when it comes to his senses, you can reconsider reconciling, suggested Adiola. Jibike hesitated. "I can't divorce my husband. What will my parents say? What will people think? I don't want to be a single mother. I believe everything will work out fine. Moreover, I still love him," she stuttered. Adiola was furious to hear her mention love again. "You better be careful. Are you the first to have a husband? Is it even necessary to stay in a marriage where you are not valued? Jibike, there are plenty of men out there who will shower you with pure love and affection. Don't waste your life with an irresponsible man," Adiola scolded. But Jibike refused to consider her friend's advice. One day, as Taye was about to leave for work, Jibike approached him with a heavy heart. "Taye, I have been a good and submissive wife to you. I've taken on your responsibilities and cared for you as a virtuous woman should. But it seems you're taking my love, patience, and respect for granted," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Why are you making my love for you so difficult? Is it a cry to love you?" Taye barely glanced at her before walking out, leaving Jibike heartbroken once again. She spent the day in tears, pondering her life. The thought of considering Adiola's advice crossed her mind briefly, but she dismissed it immediately. Jibike continued to endure her lonely existence in her marriage, while Taye remained unrepentant. He continued to live carelessly, checking his responsibilities. Unfortunately, Jibike's business suffered. She could no longer sustain the family's financial needs as before. Then she approached Taye and begged for money, but he turned her down. Jibike, a strong woman, had to start hustling. She sold off all the goods in her shop to feed her family and was left with nothing. Aware that her husband was indifferent to her business or situation, she knew she had to hustle for her family and her daughter. She couldn't sit back at home doing nothing, or hunger would deal with her. So she decided to approach some of her trading partners in the same market for help to revive her business. But they all turned her down, claiming the economy hadn't been good for them. Jibike then decided to approach Aguda, one of the richest traders in the market. Aguda was known to have over 10 shops in the market and was very wealthy, and he was known to be arrogant and a flex. On a sunny afternoon, Jibike went to Aguda's shop to plead for a loan to revive her business. Aguda was about to step out when she arrived, and during their conversation, she explained her reason for the visit and pleaded for a loan from him. However, his response left Jibike in awe. "Jibike Omodada, you don't have to beg me for money or a loan. I can give you as much as you want. In fact, I can relieve you of stressful life and business. Just accept to be mine and you will enjoy a good lifestyle. Aguda said proudly. Jibike was disappointed with his request. Sorry, Aguda, you know, I'm a married woman with a grown-up child. And you have 2 wives at home already. I can't marry you, please. Jibike replied. Aguda laughed loudly. Audacious. I didn't ask you to marry me. I only asked you to be mine. Be my mistress, satisfy me in the other room, and I will satisfy you financially. Just name it, and I will give you whatever you want. I'm sorry, Aguda. I can't do that. But please, help me. I will refund your money with interest if you want. Jibike pleaded. Aguda, angered by her refusal, sent her out of his shop. Jibike felt furious and ashamed of her situation. She was heartbroken. While walking back home that afternoon, she was lost in thought and got hit by a car. Then she was immediately rushed to the nearest hospital, but unfortunately, the doctor declared her dead upon arrival. Sholakbe, upon hearing the news of her mother's demise, wept bitterly. She rushed to the hospital, praying for her mother to come back to life. But unfortunately, death refused to let go. Sholakbe was devastated, wondering what fate had in store for her. Daily, she cried herself to sleep, but a stream of tears couldn't bring back her mother. One day, Sholakbe returned home to the sight of her father and a woman in the sitting room. She was shocked to see him with a strange woman. Taye stood up and introduced the new woman to Sholakbe. Sholakbe, this is Bisola, your new mother. Henceforth, you should accord her the same respect you would give your mother. What? Sholakbe was surprised. Daddy? We just lost mom about a month ago and you already brought in another woman? This is unbelievable. Oh, I guess you were actually waiting for her death. In fact, you keep... Taye interrupted her. Shut up that your big mouth before I shut it for you. How dare you spew such nonsense? Have you grown wings and lack manners? Oh, is that what you would tell the whole world? Sholakbe ran into her room sobbing. She wondered what her fate would be with a stepmother. She had heard several stories of stepmothers and how cruel they could be. She wept some more and wished her mother could come back to her. While she was sobbing and mulling over her life, Bisola walked into her room to pacify her. Dear Sholakbe, I am sorry about your mother's demise. I assure you that everything will be fine. Wipe your tears, baby girl. You will be fine. Bisola was an elegant and gorgeous woman with a good job. She had been mocked and gossiped for still being single at age 38. Some said she was irresponsible for being single. Others said she was too career-oriented and that's why she's not married. Some people said she's under a generational spell and until the spell is broken, she would remain unmarried. Bisola had hoped for marriage for so many years and got no proposal. She was almost at the verge of giving up on marriage when she met Taye at a wedding party. Taye and Bisola had met at a wedding reception where they shared a table and got talking. 3 weeks later, Taye proposed to her and Bisola, who was eager to get married, accepted without taking the time to get to know him better. It was her first proposal and she was thrilled at the idea of finally changing her status. A week after the proposal, Taye paid her bride price and they were married. However, despite the smooth start to their marriage, Taye continued to exhibit irresponsible behavior. He refused to contribute financially to their home, yet he indulged in all the food Bisola provided. He showed no concern for his immediate family's financial well-being, instead choosing to spend the bulk of his salary on his mother and siblings, neglecting his wife and daughter. After 3 months of marriage, Bisola began to notice Taye's attitude towards finances and family upkeep. One evening, after dinner, she decided to confront him about it. Sweetheart, I've noticed that for the past 3 months you haven't contributed anything towards our food or upkeep. It's been bothering me. Don't you care about where our food comes from? She asked calmly. Taye was taken aback by her question and replied, "Why should I worry about where the food comes from? When I know you have a job and earn a salary, we are eating well and living comfortably. Isn't that enough?" Bisola was confused by his response and replied, "Are you saying you are okay with your wife single-handedly sponsoring the family welfare? What about you as the man of the house? What exactly are you willing to bring in? My salary is not meant for family upkeep. You are the head, and I'm only meant to support you when necessary," Bisola retorted. Taye interrupted her. "Woman, where is it written that a woman shouldn't shoulder her family responsibilities?" He laughed mockingly. "Please go right on with your duties and stop being petty." He continued laughing and stormed off. Bisola was shocked at his view of marriage. She knew she had entered an ugly situation, but it was too late to turn back. Divorce wasn't an option for her, and she wasn't willing to leave Sholakwe. She knew Sholakwe needed her at such a critical moment. Bisola and Sholakwe bonded well like a mother and daughter. Bisola took care of her and provided everything she needed. She bought her beautiful clothing and fed her nutritious meals. Sholakwe was thankful that Bisola treated her like her own mother. She was glad she wasn't experiencing the wicked stepmother stories she had heard from her classmates and friends. 12 months passed and Taye remained unrepentant. He continued treating Bisola as he had treated Jibike. Bisola, being a peace lover, smart and intelligent woman, managed Taye's unbearable attitudes. She avoided physical altercations, cleverly handling misunderstandings to prevent escalation. After a while, Bisola went broke due to her mother's ailment that took away all her life savings. She was broke and could no longer cater for their needs. She approached her husband for money to buy food, but Taye refused, claiming he had no money either. Bisola was heartbroken at his lies and wickedness. She considered moving out of the house, but the thought of leaving Sholakwe alone pierced her heart. However, she couldn't watch her daughter go hungry. Bisola decided to take a loan from her office just to feed her family, but this time she made up her mind never to include Taye's meal in all she cooked. Whenever Taye returned home and demanded food, Bisola would say they had no food at home. She continued eating alone with Sholakwe for weeks while Taye refused to give her money for food. Instead, he would stop at a cozy restaurant to eat before returning home after work. On weekends, when Taye was at home, Bisola would give Sholakwe some money to buy food outside, or they would go out together to satisfy their hunger. But a few weeks later, Taye noticed a change in his family. He wondered how his wife could claim they hadn't been eating for the past weeks, yet they looked fat and flourishing. Taye decided to start returning home earlier than expected. One day, he arrived home when his family had just finished having their dinner. Immediately upon opening the door, he perceived sweet aroma of well-prepared jollof rice. He rushed to the kitchen to confirm his suspicions. There, he saw Sholakwe and his wife in the kitchen, doing the dishes and cleaning up. Taye felt deeply disappointed at the sight and burst into lamentation. "Bisola, so you've been telling lies all this time. Do you think I'm a fool? How dare you lie to me that you guys haven't been eating for the past weeks, yet you look fresher than expected. So, you cook and eat earlier before my return. Then you tell me lies that you had nothing to eat?" Taye continued ranting, but Bisola refused to say a word. When Taye was done ranting for a few minutes, he ordered his wife to get him food to eat, but she refused, insisting they had nothing at home to cook. Taye slept hungry, bearing grudges with her. The next day, Taye returned home and still wasn't served any food. He had thought Bisola would change after he caught up with her lies and pretense, but she didn't. Hungry and angry, Taye ordered his wife to get him food to eat. Again, she insisted they had nothing at home. Taye became angry but was really hungry. He knew he couldn't stoop so low as to beg her for food. That night, he waited for them to sleep. When they were asleep, he quietly walked to the kitchen, thinking he could find something to eat, snack on, or even cook, or perhaps drink garri. Unfortunately, he found the kitchen door locked. Bisola had locked it and hidden the keys. Taye was hungry and heartbroken. He thought of waking his wife for the kids, but instead, he hurriedly went out to eat at the restaurant since he couldn't withstand the hunger. At the restaurant, he stumbled upon his childhood friend, Timmy. Timmy had been out of town for 20 years. They were surprised to see each other, while Timmy kept an excited face, displaying his utmost joy in seeing him and trying to catch up on their pastimes. Taye hurriedly told him to excuse him to get food to eat first before they continued. While they sat at the same table, Timmy observed how Taye devoured his food like a hungry lion, devouring his prey. He couldn't let go of the scenario, and so he burst out, "Taye, why are you eating like a hungry animal? Are you okay?" Taye refused to reply until he finished his food. "Taye, what's the problem? Haven't you eaten for 14 days? Why were you eating in such a manner?" Timmy asked again. Taye took a deep breath and replied that he hadn't had anything to eat since morning. "What about your wife? Aren't you married?" "I'm married, but my wife refused to give me food." "That's unbelievable. But why? If I may ask, don't you take up your obligation as the man of the house?" Taye refused to answer him, and then Timmy was able to discern the reason for his wife's behavior. "See, Taye, you are the man of the house and the husband. Your duty is to cater for your family and make everything available unto them. Your wife shouldn't be the one feeding you when you have what it takes to feed them. You better change for the best before you eat poison outside," Timmy said. But Taye refused to respond to him. They caught up with other gist and parted ways. Sholape disliked her father's attitude and was unhappy about how he treated her stepmother, but she remained glad at how Bisola cared for her like her biological daughter. Bisola ensured Sholape lacked nothing, while Sholape showed her love and respect in return to appreciate her kindness towards her. One day, Sholape narrated all that her father did to her mother before her demise to Bisola. She made her understand every bit of it without withholding any facts. "Mommy, I love you so much, and I want to say thank you for taking me as your own. Thank you for caring for me. Thank you for your endless love. Again, I want to let you know that my father has been like this since I knew him. He never shouldered any responsibility. My mom paid the rent, footed all the bills, and everything you could think of. Yet, my dad still never made her happy. She was mentally, physically, emotionally, and financially drained. In fact, she lost her business to keep up the house, and when she approached my dad for money, he refused her. My mom had to go out to beg for a loan when she had an accident and died. Please, I love you so much. In all you do, never let his unbecoming attitude drain you like it drained my mother and took her life," Sholape said. Bisola was shocked at her story. She sighed heavily and wished for wisdom to overcome the horrible phase of her marriage. Bisola never stopped being good to her stepdaughter. She got her admission into the university to study law, sponsored her education, and ensured she lacked nothing, thereby giving Sholape nothing to worry about so she could focus on her studies squarely. Bisola and Taye continued living together like strangers in their home. She refused to give him food and intimacy, while Taye became drained and continued eating at the restaurant. One day, after closing of work, he branched at his usual restaurant and ate eba with vegetable soup. On getting home that night, Taye wasn't himself. He purged from midnight till the next morning. He poured so much and became weak. He had thought he would die that night, but luckily, he survived. The next morning, he was too weak to resume work, so he managed to visit the hospital alone, and the doctor diagnosed it as food poisoning. He was given medications, got well, yet he remained unchanged, refusing to give money to his wife, and Bisola in turn refused to give him food. One day, when Sholape returned back from school and saw Taye and Bisola in a heated argument, she tried to stop her dad from saying horrible words against her, but he continued. Taye rained curses and abuses on her, but Bisola remained quiet. Her silence hurt Taye even more, and he continued while Sholape recorded all her father did that day. At night, Sholakwe approached her father and played the video she recorded for him. Taye, upon seeing his foolishness in the video, felt embarrassed that his child could throw his wrong deeds at him. That night, Sholakwe spoke some senses into him. She helped him realize that his attitude was what killed her mom, and if he continued like that, no woman would ever stay with him anymore. She even made him realize that if he pushed her stepmother to her wit's end, she would divorce him after all. There is no child binding them yet. Sholakwe spoke her words of knowledge and left her father to ponder over it all. That night, Taye felt truly embarrassed. He couldn't sleep all night. It was the first time words meant so much to him. Sholakwe's words pierced his heart to sobriety. Then he recalled his foolishness, selfishness, and all that Timi had told him that night. He pondered on all his wrongs and wept profusely. Sholakwe's words were like a divine touch that removed a heavy dark veil from his eyes. The next morning, he called on his wife and daughter and apologized meekly to them. "Bisola, I know I've been irresponsible and not even worthy to be called your husband. I have failed you and Sholakwe woefully. All I can say now is that I'm very sorry for all my wrongs. Please, forgive me. Sholakwe, I know I'm not worthy to be called a father. I'm so sorry for how I treated you and your mother. I hope her spirit forgives me as she keeps resting on. Please, you too should forgive my attitudes," he begged. Bisola was shocked at his repentance, while Sholakwe wept uncontrollably when he mentioned his dead mother. That day, Taye turned a new leaf. He dropped money for his wife to take care of all their needs. It was a shock to Bisola. He also called Sholakwe and asked for her school fee and every other allowance she needed, then transferred the money into her account. When Taye left for work, Bisola and her stepdaughter began to wonder what had caused the sudden change in him. They both laughed so hard at his repentance and were grateful for the change. And so, they began to rebuild their broken family afresh. Slowly, they recovered from their past and lived together peacefully. Taye took up his responsibilities and Bisola remained supportive. A few years later, Sholakwe graduated with a first-class honors degree and excelled academically in law school. After she was called to the bar, she became a very smart and successful legal practitioner. A few years later, she started her law firm and focused on family law, treating family cases of domestic violence, abuse, single parenting, and other family-related cases. Sholakwe did so well in her career but refused all marriage proposals that came her way. She refused to date or even marry any man, finding comfort in her single life and her career, delivering many marriages and homes held in shackles. So lovelies, that's the end of the story. If you enjoyed the story and would like to see the part 2, please like this video and comment part 2 down in the comment section. Kindly subscribe for more interesting stories than these. Thank you so much for watching. Till we see in the next video. Bye.